Mark was 22 years old and he was an elite athlete. And I'm not talking about your regular 30-minute jog every day. I'm talking of 3 to 4 hours of exercise, running, working out every single day, 6 days a week. That was Mark. He had no non-medical condition and no family non-medical condition. He was basically unstoppable. And if you like medical mysteries, you are in the right place. So please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons. And right at the end of this video, I'm gonna show you real footage of this patient. And if you want to read the full paper, it's down here at the description of this video. On Tuesday morning, Mark woke up, and it was strange. He couldn't move out of his bed. And perhaps you felt that way before, when you were dreaming that you couldn't move, and there you were, and sometimes you dream like you were out of your body, and then you go back and you can move. It was nothing like that. Mark was wide awake, eyes opened, and he could not move. He tried to move his arm, no movement. He tried to move his leg, no movement. He tried to shout for help. He could not do it. When his mom went to his bedroom, she knew right away that something was wrong. So she called 911 and they rushed him to the hospital. When he arrived there, doctors knew that this was a very serious case. He was wide awake, he was alert, but he was imprisoned. As if he was stuck on this giant ice cube, he could do absolutely no movement but one. He could only move his eyes. And it's not just any kind of movement. The only movement that he could do with his eyes was a vertical movement. So he could look up, he could look down, and he could blink. That was all that he could do. Was he in coma? Was it vegetative state? Doctors immediately ran an MRI to check on his brain. And what they found baffled them. Mark had a stroke on his basilar artery. This artery, it supplies blood to the pons. Now the pons is this primitive part of the brain that works as a bridge from the brain to the rest of the body. So if you need to go from here, to moving your arms, to moving your hands, to moving your face, to moving your feet, you need to go through the pons. Now his pons was now damaged. He had a stroke in that specific area of the brain, and it was still there. The blood clot was still there, and doctors knew that he had to hurry up so that he could try to save him. Doctors immediately began to give him thrombolytic medication. Thrombo meaning blood clot. Lytic meaning break. So they wanted to break the blood clot. But that alone wasn't enough because the blood clot was too big. So what doctors had to do was a thrombectomy. Thromb meaning blood clot. Ectomy means remove, like when you have an appendectomy. They put a catheter on his femoral artery, on his groin, and they went all the way up to his brain. There, they used this tool that looks like a claw, and they grabbed the blood clot and they removed that blood clot. Although they did all of that, recovery was very unlikely. Even when you diagnose early, every second that your brain stays out of getting blood, it stays out of getting oxygen, and then your brain cells die, and that damage is more often than not irreversible. Only 21% of people who have this kind of stroke, they recover their motor functions. But Mark was not a regular person. Although usually the sentence is a life without movement, only being able to move your eyes. That would not be the case for Mark. But let's go back a little bit. Why? Why did that happen to a 22-year-old perfectly healthy athlete? Well, doctors found out that they had this genetic disorder called factor V Leiden, which basically makes your blood clot more easily. And it is usually asymptomatic. Usually a person can go with this genetic disorder all through their lives, without having any kind of symptom. But because that specific day Mark was running for 3 hours and he did not drink enough water, he did not hydrate himself enough, then you had this perfect storm. You had the blood, this genetic modification that makes your blood clot more easily, and you have dehydration, which makes your blood more thick. Those two factors combined led to that clot and led to his stroke. When doctors were talking to Mark, they noticed something very unusual. He had a slight movement on his chin, something almost imperceptible if you're not directly looking at him. 6 months later, with a lot of physiotherapy, Mark was able to sit up. And 22 months later, that's almost 2 years, Mark was finally able to walk again. His diagnosis was locked in syndrome. Locked in syndrome. And in his case, it was incomplete because he could still have this light movement on his chin, which basically meant that the blood clot did not totally prevent the blood from going to his brain. Now, in this locked-in syndrome, which became famous with the movie The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, which I highly recommend to you, if you have early movement like Mark had on his chin, that is a predictor that he will be able to recover better. And because he was rushed to the hospital, because doctors were able to diagnose that condition and treat that condition right away, he was able to get out of that ice cube. He was able to recover again. And now I'm going to show you a video, a real footage of this patient. And I hope you enjoy this video, so please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And see you at your next appointment. So at first, this was the only kind of movement that Mark was able to do. Just blink his eyes and do these vertical movements with his eyes. Now, 22 months later, he was like this. He was able to walk again. It was not perfect, but given his initial condition, he was again moving his face, moving his eyes.